Okay. Hello, everybody. We are live. TM and BW right here. BW, you gonna make it?
I'm gonna do my best.
Today we are going to be talking about a bridge called Grace. This should be interesting. Let's get at it right now. I always like that little. It's got a little bounce to it.
Yeah.
Right. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Taralyn, Michelle, and Billy Wroe Live. It is so great to be with you this week. How's it been this week thus far?
Thus far, so good, said the man who fell off the cliff on his way down. So far, so good.
Oh, okay, wait, look, you look pretty good to have taken a journey off a cliff.
That's only because I shaved yesterday. I didn't even shave today. That's how the days have been treating me.
I know that's right. Well, first of all, we missed you guys last week. Hey, JC, missed you guys last week. I'm here in Florida, and so we got touched by Ian, as everyone knows. Thank you so much for all of the messages, texts, prayers. Definitely appreciate that. I want to send love out to everyone impacted by Ian. For those who may have lost someone or who are just going through a challenging time, just know that you are in our thoughts, and just pray that everything moves forward well for everyone. So this week, a bridge called Grace is what this episode is about. And it's funny because we typically throw these topics around at random times. So actually, this is one of the ones that was from way back when. And to be transparency moment, I don't remember what I was thinking at the time that I threw this out there. However, it's so funny because I'm always talking to Billy about divine timing. It's so
Mm-hmm.
funny because with everything going on, not just many of us are still adjusting in many ways from COVID climate. And when I say that, I'm talking about the rebirth of the individual. Many of us, I think it's safe to say everyone had to dig within themselves to discover aspects of themselves that maybe they were not aware of, maybe they were hibernating, maybe you just had to reinvent somebody to be able to deal and to move forward from that. And then you add to it this hurricane that just passed. I had a conversation with someone yesterday who lost someone that they love, and the thing that really ties into this topic today is the heaviness of this person's heart because the relationship was strained and they hadn't had the opportunity to talk to this person before they lost this person due to Ian. And so there was just like, you always assume that there will be tomorrow. And so not just within the context, Grace, in the context of other folks, but my thought process going into this today was Grace in the context of ourselves, because I believe that charity begins at home. What we're able to give ourselves first, sometimes it makes it easier for us to be able to give that same thing to other people. So a lot of the times when I would hear the conversation about grace, it was always talking about other people. But I find that an example would be if you're someone who has a hard time forgiving yourself, replaying different things that have happened throughout the course of life, then it kind of makes it hard to be forgiving with other people. So today, my thought process with this is grace from the perspective of charity beginning at home, practicing some of the ways in which we can give grace to ourselves so that in turn, it's easier for us to imagine giving that same grace to people who, by our own definition, may not deserve it. How are you landing on this, Billy? What did you think about when you saw it?
So we're actually resonating with each other on this particular topic. When I thought about a bridge called grace, I really wasn't thinking about how we extend grace to others. I was thinking if we're on one side of our journey and we are trying to make it to the other side, there are mistakes, there are challenges, some I want to say self-inflicted challenges that we're going to face on that journey to the other side. And the only, I don't want to say the only, the fastest way through those challenges, in my opinion, is to open up a space of grace, open up a space of humanity. And it always sounds weird to say to be willing to forgive yourself, but that truly is the essence for me of the conversation, being willing to truly forgive yourself for making a decision that could have had a great impact, like a really significant impact on your life, but being willing to forgive that impact that you've created on your own and then move forward to continue on that journey to get to the other side. So when you say that bridge, I immediately see the gap in between being that growth that we're to experience as we try to get to the destination that we're seeking to get to in that moment. So very much similar, starting at home, starting with thyself. And in all honesty, um, I feel like for myself, I have gotten better at being, I'm going to say a little, I ain't all the way there, being, being a little more understanding with others because of my willingness to forgive myself. And that has been probably my biggest challenge, is being able to say, Billy, yeah, you expected this of yourself, but you made this decision, and this was maybe a bad decision. Maybe you made it knowingly, maybe you made it unknowingly, but you can either harp on that and continue to beat yourself up with that, which means you're not really building any more planks onto that bridge to get to the other side. Or you can say, okay, so I made a bad decision and I knew it was a bad decision when I made it. However, that's part of the process. That's part of my humanity. That's part of my ability to be fallible. So that's what I see when I immediately thought about, when I thought about a bridge called grace, is offering ourselves the same grace that sometimes we are more willing to offer to others, and sometimes not willing to offer to others, but sometimes more willing to offer to others.
Yeah, that part right there. I think that when I imagine that bridge, I think about if we were to imagine where we are and the other side of where we are, where we want to be, in that gap that's in between, that throughout the course of life we're filling in. What comes to mind when I think about this topic too is also the unrealistic expectations that I think that many of us will put on ourselves. We'll have the deck stacked so high, it's impossible for us to be able to execute and win that the way that we want to win that. I would say immediately, because we're in a push button society. So you stack these unrealistic expectations, throw a ridiculous date on it, and then when you fail, it's like, okay, trauma time. Now I'm gonna go
Right.
in on myself. When if you really had a step back and assess that situation, the reality of what it would take to execute that thing, you can put whatever time frame you want on it. If it's a process that takes a year, it's gonna take a year, and that's a year if it goes perfectly.
Right.
That's not a year factoring into any process you go through. Typically involves other people and external factors that have nothing to do with just you and your capability. So when I think about building that bridge, I think about our capability to live in a space of what realistic expectations are, and not be fearful of that thing playing out in the time that it should, as opposed to the time frame that we want it to. Not judging ourselves because we can't become Superman or Superwoman, and fast forward through a process. Because I want one of the things that, and you and I have talked about this before, I think one of the things that we've both learned and are continuing to learn in different ways throughout our journey is that some of the spaces within our life that are delayed are actually the perfect spaces for the gestation process. There's
Right.
personal growth that's happening during what appears to be a delay. Looks like it ain't moving, but you have to be prepared to get to the space that you're trying to get to. And so
Right.
part of that bridge is understand, or building planks on that bridge to get to the other side, is understanding realistic expectations. Delays are actually, I would like to call pit stops for gestation along the way, so that when you're out of that pit stop moving to the next plank on your bridge, you're prepared as an individual, mind, body, and spirit, to face what you're going to have to go through to get to the other side of that bridge.
Right. You know, that makes me think about being a kid when we would take road trips, especially as far as we would be driving. We had to stop for gas. We had to. There was no car fuel efficient enough to drive from the distances we were driving. So we would have to stop for gas. And in the pit stop for the gas, we never considered that a delay. That was just part
Right.
of the trip. It was like,
It
yeah, we
was
got to stop.
necessary.
Yeah, we go get some chips. We might get a Gatorade to share or a soda to share, or whatever it may be. That was a necessary part of the journey.
Yeah.
However, I I think it's in our rush or sometimes in our excitement. Think about a kid at Christmas time. Our excitement to get to the next day. You can't hardly even sleep on Christmas night when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And so you're like up, you're wired, and you're just like, I just want to get to the next day. And in our excitement, we forget that it is truly every aspect of it is a journey, is
Mhm.
a part of the journey. Every component is the journey, not existing outside of the journey. And it's difficult. It can be difficult to accept that. But the faster I feel like we get to accepting that it is the journey and not um, existence of outside of the journey, I think the faster we can get to the space of offering ourselves grace. Because in essence, what another way I look at grace is understanding, and understanding I look at as patience, offering ourselves the patience necessary to navigate the space.
That patience part. Mm-mm-mm. That's always been a challenge for me, and I've gotten much better with it, but I still have a long ways to go. A long ways to go. And you know what? In talking about this, that bridge for grace, the bridge called grace, I think that the patience piece is so very important, because I know for me, the climate of energy, the anxiety, the anxiety is the only one that comes to mind right now. I'm sure there are other ones, but some of the things that come with the habit of looking at and addressing situations in one way, as opposed to disrupting that pattern and creating something completely and totally different. That climate can become something that you're used to, even though it's uncomfortable, even though you don't like the other ways in which your energy may disrupt other things around you. Because of that, the climate can be one that you don't care for, but you're used to it. It can
Right.
become a normal part of how you're used to feeling, a normal part of how you're used to navigating and dealing with things. And I think that that's another thing that could be a challenge when we're trying to disrupt negative patterns, so that we could start to put in new ways of thinking, new processes of thinking. What do you think are some of the things that listeners, or people who are watching, what are some of the things that they could probably practice to help disrupt those negative patterns that you're used to kind of put something new in there to start to create a new normal? Because it's a series and a pattern of habits that keeps us on that hamster wheel. What are some
Right.
things where when you disrupt that, you can take and create a new hamster wheel, but one that feeds and fuels, as opposed to fags out and serves as famine?
So it's funny because today's thought of the day was centered around this very concept. And
Mhm.
so it says focus is a decision we make to shift our attention directly to something that we were already contemplating. And I was
I like
when you
that.
said what is the thing that we can do to shift that disruption, honestly, the thing we you know how I don't like to say have to do.
Have to do. I say you stop it.
I'm starting to get better. I'm like, I even saying the whole word. But the thing that I recommend for people to do is to practice. Just like it is an effortless habit for us to pick up our phone and be on Facebook or be on a game on our cell phone for hours or for an hour and not feel that time pass, that is a strategic disruption that marketing has learned how to create algorithms that will keep you engaged and not pay attention to the time. It's
Yeah.
just short enough to get your attention, but not long enough to get you to truly focus on how much attention you're paying to it and how much time is going by. And so,
Right.
if we can take that concept or that paradigm and flip it to where the disruption is not the counterproductive or the negative thing where we're going to beat ourselves up because we're not giving ourselves grace, but making the disruption just a little bit of grace, just enough to disrupt it, but not enough for you to realize that you're operating in grace, and not enough for you to realize the time in which you're operating in grace. So
Hmm.
it's the distraction is not the problem. It is the, to me at least, it is the solution. Learning how to distract from the negative trauma responses that we have to making mistakes or not being where we want to be. Learning how to flip that and create disruptions and distractions that pull us into the place that we want to be. So the thought of the day though says that in order to do that, this has to be something that you are already contemplating. It can't be something that's not known to you and then all of a sudden it's just there. No, it has to be something that's within your contemplation or within your subconscious in order for you to trigger it to come to the front, trigger it to come to the front. So in the beginning, it's very intentional to say, okay, I'm bringing this to the front. I'm bringing this to the front. I'm bringing this to the front. But then after a while, what happens is it becomes that habitual nature. And if
Hmm.
you can implement it into a habit, then habits are effortless. Look, I could eat junk food to my heart's content because it's a habit. I have to actually focus on, okay, I want a candy bar, but instead of getting a candy bar, I'm going to get an apple. I'm
Yeah.
going to get a yogurt. I'm going
Yeah.
to drink water. It's those are the new habits that I'm using to disrupt the thoughts on food. So when it comes to beating ourselves up, or I'm going to even go as far as saying abusing ourselves in
Because
the
it is.
area of not offering ourselves grace,
Yeah.
expecting that this new experience, even if it's a familiar one, it's new today, this new experience that we're in, how are we expected to get 100% of new experiences right? That's impossible.
Right.
So offering yourself that disruption, offering yourself that distraction as the solution to disrupt the behavior of being abusive to yourself. I feel like that is something that I'm continually engaging with, and I bring it from having the ability to dream lucidly. Whatever my intentions are on when I go to sleep, if I'm struggling with a problem or looking for a solution, then I immediately have dreams that are working to solve those problems. And I think about how much faster my brain operates in the dream space than it does when I'm awake. Like I'm experiencing hours and hours and hours and sometimes days of processing information while I'm asleep versus when I'm awake, I'm only processing for however long I'm awake and in front of the computer actively working on the problem. So that would be my solution. But what about for you? What other solutions do you have to offer for the listeners?
I got to just before I even get into that, I love how you mentioned that things that we're contemplating. That's so important. I want to go back to that because someone watching may say things that we're contemplating. Listen, we're all contemplating something. An example would be if you've been saying for the last 5 months, I don't know, that, hey, this thing, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And this is the frequency. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it this often. This is what I'm doing it for. But it keeps getting pushed back, pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. When you talked about those contemplations as being opportunities, I love that, putting the two together as an opportunity because it is. Those things are not just arriving in our brains for no freaking reason. A lot of the
Right.
times we're sitting around praying for solutions. We're praying for answers. We're praying for vision. We're praying to be connected. We're praying for the fire of passion to burn. And then you have these contemplations, which are opportunities to get exactly what you've been praying for. The thing is, a lot of us don't see it that way. We can
Right.
see them as inconveniences because some of those contemplations would mean disrupting some of the things that you currently have going on to make space for this thing that's been in your head that won't seem to go away. It keeps coming back up. It keeps coming up as an answer for something or a solution for something. But putting it in there wouldn't necessarily be push button. It might require moving some things around. It might require some behind the scenes work and planning and strategy. It might require enacting, getting somebody that you may know, getting somebody you can talk to help you see outside of what's been in your head. It might take you giving of yourself in a way that might not be convenient to get that contemplation to become that opportunity that you're able to initiate on that wheel to break that pattern, create something new. And now you have another plank on your bridge. So I just had to go back there. Love that, love that, love that, love that. Love it, love it, love it. For me, when I think about this, one of the things that comes to mind for me, first and foremost, is understanding that when we're talking about breaking a pattern of what was to create something that's new, that's going to disrupt what we're usually doing or what we have been doing, the first thing that comes to mind for me was welcoming something completely and totally different and believing in that different. Now, the reason why I say that is because I know that throughout my journey, I need to be able to see stuff. And I don't,
Hmm.
it's not just see it. I mean, like 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 moves ahead. I needed to be able to see before I'll say, okay, I'll jump on that. Only thing is because I am a sister of faith and I believe in God. He doesn't work that way. There are going to be some things that I don't see that he sees. All I need to do is move. So the reason why that is something that I would lend as a suggestion is because something that's completely and totally different than what we're used to seeing, that could be the very thing to take you to the next level in your life, not only physically in the way that you're living in whatever process, doesn't matter what industry you're in, what work you do, or even what area of your life this could apply to you in. That's something that's completely and totally unknown can not only elevate you in the physical world but spiritually. If it's the shackles on our minds, the way in which we allow our emotions to keep us bound, to bind us in certain spaces. People, when we talk about fear is not always something that's like at the forefront.
Right.
That's something that's there. It's just like clawing at you, like somebody banging on your window in the middle of the night in your car when you stopped at the light. You know you should have been at home, but you really need to get some ice cream. It's not
Right.
that type of situation. Fear could come very subtly in the fact that I don't know what that is. Not sure if I could trust it. Kind of, sort of. So I don't think I'm going to go down that road. That could be fear right then and there. That contemplation that you talked about presenting itself as an opportunity, but because it's not something that's arriving in a way that we're used to seeing, we immediately push it off or procrastinate or make it
Right.
something else. So for me, welcoming that something being completely and totally different and giving yourself permission, having courage to allow it to play out. And when I say allow it to play out for myself, when I see things like that, and I make the choice because I do a lot to consider them opportunities, and I decide that they're going to play out. I put a time frame on how long, the minimum amount of time that I'm going to be in this. Kind of like I
Right.
used to tell my kids when they were coming up, hey, you got to pick something. When you do, you're going to complete it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. But we're not going to start things and then we're not going to finish them. So the same thing with ourselves. Really dig in, put yourself in it. Put a minimum amount of time frame that you're going to put in and then go all the way in. Don't worry about what you can't see. It keeps coming up because it's an opportunity for you. seize the moment and see what happens, because you already know what's going to happen. If you let it continue to just play and go away, you're going to continue to be in the same space, praying, hoping, wondering,
Wishing.
like wishing what's going to happen. So I also quickly want to say this, uh y'all, I see you in the chat. You can join us live on stage. You can do that. Just follow the link that's in the chat. And also, too, if you're here, share the show. Sharing is caring. The more involved in the conversation, the better. But yeah, I think that it's so important for us to start to entertain the idea of the unknown equaling freedom,
Mm.
emotionally and spiritually. There's, if we're supposed to be uniquely made, and our journey is unlike anyone else's on this planet. Now, we're human, so there are going to be some similarities and different things that we encounter, the way in which we navigate them. For men, there are going to be some similarities specific to journey in life as a man. For women, the same thing. So there are going to be some things that are just a part of the human journey. But if we really and truly attach to and believe that we are created unique, there's no one else like us in the world, then that would mean that there are aspects of our journey that we have never seen before, because we've yet to do it. We've
Mm.
yet to execute it. We've yet to sit in it. We've yet to stand before people, and just in doing whatever it is that we do, we have yet to arrive in the front of people and demonstrate our full uniqueness. So if you're unique, if there's no one like you, then there should be aspects of what we're doing that we haven't seen before. So instead of being afraid of that, actually having a moment to drop to your knees and thank God for revealing to you, even though you're scared, even though you're like, Lord, I don't know what this is, what it means. You sure you got that right? Even if that's where
Right.
you are. But being thankful for the fact that you are showing me something that I've never seen before. You're showing it specifically to me, and you keep showing it to me. Thank you for giving me the invitation, extending the invitation for me to connect and to walk through this and to find out what's on the other side of who you created me to be. That's the way I view
Mm. You unpacked so much there, so much. There's
that.
but it does come down to that uniqueness, that the uniqueness of our purpose, the uniqueness of our journey. I can't remember how long ago this was, but I did a writing on how if I could go back and erase every mistake I have made in my life, but it meant I couldn't be who I am today,
Mm,
I wouldn't go back and do it.
that
I
part.
would take and trust me, I've had some mistakes and I'm like, got it. Like, just give me a break. Stop making stupid decisions. But I wouldn't go back and change them, because I am who I am today because of who I was before I got here. And so when you talk about the uniqueness of that journey, where we may feel like, well, how does this play into the whole thing? Where does this come into the picture? Um, that's that underlying fear of wanting to have some sense of control
Yeah.
that you
Mhm.
honestly loosely have. We definitely don't have as much control. Look, if the planet decided to stop spinning right now, we are all along for the ride.
That's it.
Whatever that ride looks
That's
like.
it.
So it's it's interesting when you talk about that uniqueness of the journey, because I think about how unique my journey is, and it's not until I have like much more deeper conversations with people that they really get to know some of the things that I've gone through and some of the bad choices that I've made. I mean, I'm pretty transparent. I just tell you, hey, look, this is what I've gone through, this is what I've done. If you don't want to be my friend because of that, at least we know you're not being my friend because of something I told you, not something you made up in your own mind. So I'll live with that.
Right.
Um, but really, really quick, I want to bring in, because I did ask a question earlier. I asked, how have you learned to be patient with yourself? And Gina Cunningham says, I'm still learning. And then she says, Making sure I take time to myself is where I sit back and think about ways to be patient with myself and others. I love that you put yourself first. Be patient with yourself and others, because I, going back to that, that is what really taps into the unrealistic expectation.
Yeah.
We're unrealistic with ourselves about wanting to have this perfect, infallible experience. And then that bleeds over into our expectations of others, because
Yep.
it's like, well, why aren't you trying to live this unfallible, perfect experience? Well, because they're human just like you. And they just
Absolutely.
happen to be making different mistakes because they're having different experiences than you. And at the end of
Absolutely.
the day, they ain't you.
That part. Like, look, I told you my mother would always tell me, stop expecting you out of other people.
Yep. Yep. It'll drive you mad.
Absolutely. Don't be perfect, be real. And
Mm,
and honestly, I mean, when it comes to what real is, there's cracks me up when people who don't know me, I come off as being much more with people than what I actually am. It's, it's so when they get that glimpse of me, they think that, oh, you're having a bad day. I'm not having a bad day. This is just normally who I am. You
it's
just
having a
only
normal
see,
day.
yeah, you just see me in one context. And so people will see you in one context and paint this picture of who they think you are. And we've all received having that happen. Somebody come to you and they have an idea of who they think you are, and they want to communicate with you based on who they think you are. They want to have conversation, all of that. We've all experienced that. The reason why I bring that up is because if we've received that from people, if we're doing that with ourselves, we're living with the idea of who we think we should be instead of just showing up exactly who we are, where we are, who we want to be, and what we want to accomplish. We'll get there. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. There are some things that we aspire to do that is not a part of our journey. It's not a part of our creation. It's not a part of our gifting. Sometimes trying on some different things and those things not fitting reveal that to us. Oh, I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be doing this. But nevertheless, if you're showing up exactly who you are and where you are and allowing yourself to mature to that space that you imagine or that space being refined, then it's a whole lot easier to see other people and be able to do the same thing, to see them exactly where they are, irregardless of what they're describing or who some folks have representatives. Now when I see that type of thing, I used to always think that that was a negative thing. It's really not. Part of becoming who you want to be is walking in it as though it already is. Now there are degrees to that. There are some degrees that are outside of the realm of what's ethical, but then there are other spaces of that which are absolutely positively normal. And if you just sit back and allow yourself to be, then it makes it easier to allow other people to be. And even if there are some things that they're walking in until they become, you can have a space of appreciation for it as opposed to a space of judgment for it. Same thing with yourself. You can have a space of appreciation for you going through your process as opposed to judgment for not already being made and there. Because actually,
Right.
we're never going to be all the way there. I don't think anyone ever reaches a space of self actualization. It just doesn't happen. We're
No.
always
Right.
striving to get to something. And so being forgiving with ourselves through that process, forgetting about being perfect, just being real, it'll allow us to be able to extend that same kind of grace to other people that we encounter, which also strengthens the way in which we're able to have these healthy relationships that can go beyond just acquaintances to actual friendships, to actual communities, and things like that.
Right. You bring up a good point, and I want to get your perspective on it,
Mhm.
on showing up as yourself,
Mhm.
showing up not as somebody you think people want you to be. How do you think that plays into our lack of grace and maybe some of the frustration that drives us away from a space of grace when we show up as somebody that we think people want us to be, and then we make the mistake as that person that we really didn't want to be. And now we have to somehow offer not just grace for the mistake, but grace for choosing to be somebody that we knew we weren't in the first place. I know
Whoa.
that was a lot. That's what my brain was just, it was going. It was going.
Yeah, and I saw it. Quick, 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 quick. I saw it. I think that in hearing you describe that, that's not about, or at least this is just my estimation from because I'm visual. I'm imagining this while you're saying it. I don't think that that has anything to do with what someone thinks other people want them to be, more so than who them not being happy with who they are currently.
Mm,
I'm not comfortable with showing up with who I am currently. So let me create something that I feel comfortable with around these people, because it could be, I'm imagining that as you said it, it could be that person not only not comfortable with where they are, but the people that they're around, that they decided it's something about these people that made them worthy of this additional effort. Because if they were not there, you would be whoever you were. You sitting at home on your couch with your ice cream sitting up on your stomach, and you got your wine over there or something. That's I don't know.
oh,
You know how I do. But it was something about those people that made you feel as though you needed to do that. What
mm,
is it about those people that make you feel like arriving exactly who you are, where, whatever it is with you, that's not good enough for you? Not so much them. They're going to accept whatever you show them. They don't know you like that. So let's be clear. This is about the individual, not about the people.
mm,
You feel like you need to do that for them. So that's an internal identity thing. The question would be, why do you feel like where you are isn't enough? Why do you feel like they need to see something other than just what is? And that's a layered process. Coaching, we're not therapists. People don't, I don't think they understand the difference sometimes. But a lot of the times I encounter that in different ways. I don't go into that like that. My job is to help the person to circumvent whatever the blockade is in that moment to get to whatever our goal is. But in saying
right.
that, I encountered that a lot, and it can be a ball of yarn in some ways, but a lot of the times the answer to that why is right at the surface, and it has to do with a narrative that the individual has given themselves about not being worthy of being in certain groups, or the I should be here, or I should have done this, or and that mindset I've seen blocks the individual from doing what it is that they're really called to do. You're stuck in the
Right.
space of what you should have, instead of understanding that right now, currently, you could just be.
Mm,
Should have indicates past, but you're here right now. You're here right now. And if you had 4 days being, then you're 4 days closer to where you want to get, instead of talking about what should have been, which in a lot of cases is at least 10 years ago.
right. Should have
So
could
I
have
think
was
that,
10 years ago.
yeah, I don't think that that has anything to do with the external, the people. I think that has everything to do with the internal. I hope I answered your question.
You answered half of it, so I'm gonna ask the
You have
other
another
half
part?
of it.
Yeah, please
The
do.
other half being how much of the frustration that generates,
Mm.
how much do you feel that drives you away from even putting yourself to where you can maybe bring forth a grace distraction or put yourself in a state of grace to build that
Oh,
grace bridge?
the frustration that's a toxic. I think that creates a toxic climate for your mind, if you will. I think that, especially being a spiritual mindset coach, I think that the climate of our mind, and understanding that we can intentionally create a climate for our mind. Think about the climate that we create for our homes. Ooh, good example. Think about the
Oh
climate that
Lord.
think, think about the climate that we create for our homes, right? And when I
Mhm.
say climate, everybody knows you like a certain smell, you like a certain temperature. There's a certain atmosphere that you create that makes this place inviting, comfortable, safe. Okay. And if you happen to go on vacation and come back, somebody forgot to take their trash out, the climate is disrupted because that smell is in there. That's not
Right.
that's not a part of the environment that you have for your home. All right. Our minds is exactly the same way. And so then when you allow that energy in and stay stuck in that energy, think of that as the trash that was left when you went to catch the plane to go out of town. And that smell is just permeating through the air. And over time, it's taken and it's sucking up all of the clean, beautiful, invigorating, calming air in your home. That same thing's happening in your mind. Over time, that grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And so now, if you can imagine that plume of green smoke in your mind overtaking all of that pure, beautiful air that was there, that atmosphere in your mind, now there's no room for the mind to formulate. And even if it does formulate a thought, that's an opposition to that putrid space that you've created because of the need to have this representative and this other identity that's really not you. You stay in that long enough, and now when anything comes up, because the air is so thick with that toxicity, it just smothers it out, smothers it out, smothers it out. So you get to a space where the only thing that you can do from that point is to start to drain out that toxicity in order for you to create space so that when those other opportunities come up in your mind, not only can you see them, but you have room to process them. You have room
Right.
to marinate on it. You have room to formulate. You have room to strategize. You even have room to say, you know what? This sounds like it could be, but I think I might need some help. So there has to be a climate that's created. And to your point, I think that if you're in that space of feeling as though I'm not really, what it is I'm not enough. I'm not enough to just be. I don't feel like, because it's not. I don't believe that the I'm not enough thing is ever true. But if you believe it, then that's your truth. Even though it's not factually true, you believe it, you make it true. So if you're feeling as though you're not enough, and you're showing up in that space and feeling like you need to do or be or create something else, think of that as that green plume of toxicity that now you're taking and allowing to be in the climate of your mind. And if you don't check it, it'll continue to grow and just stamp out everything else.
Hmm. No,
I'm
I
visual.
100% agree with that.
I'm
It,
visual. So I had to do the
yeah, you had to bring them into the house. You know, you open the door, you walk in. The carpet is the color you want the carpet to be. The walls is the color you want the walls to be. Favorite picture, first thing you see.
That's
Yeah,
right.
no,
Yeah.
I agree with that though, where you can create environments that stifle that.
Yeah.
Um, I think about like the criminal justice system being
Mm,
confined in a what they say, 6x8.
mm.
There are some people that can be in that space and they create some of the most beautiful art, some of the most beautiful poetry,
Yeah.
some of the most beautiful literature. And there are other people who are in that space and they lose their minds
Yep.
because that is not the space in which they thrive in.
Yep.
And in anybody in that space, I think, I'm not sure if solitary confinement still exists, but it probably does in some spaces.
Yeah.
But then going from that space to a solitary confinement space, the person who was doing great art and doing amazing songwriting or whatever it may be goes into solitary confinement, comes out talking to themselves because it stifles out the person that they were in the space where they were comfortable at. And so
Yeah.
when our minds are outside of that space of comfort or space of even familiarity, that comfortable familiarity, I guess I should say,
Yeah.
um, it can be easy to be is it stifled? I think is the word
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
stifled
Yeah.
in the sense of even this is interesting, even in the aspect of the creativity that comes in being who you are moving to be. Like
Mm.
there's you, we are constantly reinventing ourselves.
Yep.
Constantly.
Yep.
Every single day. Every
Yeah.
single day you get some new cells and some old cells fall away. Every single day. So we're constantly in this state of reimagining and reinventing and recreating ourselves. And
Yeah.
so at any moment where you stifle that process and you put it on pause or put it on hold or completely destroy it, whatever it may be, I think about how supply chain was impacted by COVID. You know, when COVID first shut down, the supply chain, we weren't experiencing shortages in the supply chain
Right.
because supply chain had to catch up to that. But once you get to COVID now coming to an end, well, subjectively coming to an end,
Right. Kind of, sort of.
um, you now see the impact of 18 months with the supply chain being impacted. Now
Yeah.
that 18-month period has to kind of vet itself out. So when we stifle our growth, you stifle it for a day, you're going to have, when you come back online, you're going to have a day of catch up to play. You
Absolutely.
stifle it for a year, you stifle it for a decade. What? What are we talking about? You're
Right.
going to have to play that catch up at some point. It's
Right.
like my son right now upstairs, maybe doing homework, maybe not doing homework. I don't even know.
Right.
But him being upstairs, I'm like, look, at some point, regardless of how you feel about it, you're going to have to do the work.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do the work. So you can act like you're doing it, but unfortunately, the world knows whether or not you're doing it because it's going to show eventually. Like even in my new role where I'm working at now, it's like I'm constantly disrupting the concept of imposter syndrome because I'm working around people who are brilliant,
Mhm.
brilliant. And so it makes you feel like, dang, am I brilliant? Because these cats is brilliant. But then to think that you're at this space because you came through a maybe a different path, but a similar upbringing in intellect to be in this space, and your brilliance is just as vibrant as their brilliance.
They have their lane and you have yours. And I think that I love that you brought that up because that's that comparison thing. Is human nature. Because and I would say I think comparison comes in because we're all striving for perfection in our own way. You don't have to be a perfectionist to necessarily take pride in what you do and want to put your best foot forward. I think that we all want to do that. And so when you're around other people where you see they're exceptional in the ways that they're exceptional and they're gifted in the ways that they're gifted, of course you appreciate that and you marvel at that. It's so awesome to behold other people's gifts. But what
Right.
is it about us as humans where when we're beholding, we don't understand that somebody's like behold at you too. They're
Right.
like, oh, to you, and you're like, oh, to them. And it's like, oh, it's going both ways. It's not just a one-sided thing. And so, even in that context of what you're speaking of, absolutely they're brilliant in their lane. That's why there was an opening for yours
Right.
because they're
Right.
not brilliant in your lane. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So, just like you be coming to them to behold their brilliance when you have your questions about this, and that in their lane, they'd be coming in yours. As brilliant as they all are, none of them were taking on that spot that you earned. And that's
Right.
because that's not their lane. And I think that that's the message for everybody who's watching it. If you catch this on the replay, drop in the chat. I'm in my lane. And it's okay to admire what's going on with other people around you. But at the end of the day, they're beholding you and what it is that you bring to the table, just like you're like, oh, and beholding them. That's something that we all do. And so I think that the practice for us as we go about the journey through life and we're deciding that we're going to build this bridge called grace for ourselves, and we're going to start here on this side of our bridge. We're trying to get here and the gap in between. In order for us to build those planks to get to the other side, we want to try to stay in a space of understanding that I don't care what it is that's going on around us, we bring something unique. We bring something that is finite with us to the
Hmm.
table for the world. There is none like it. Now, sometimes we don't allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to walk through what that thing could become. And I think that's a
Right.
part of the journey, having the courage to walk through good, bad, and different, what that thing could become. When we allow ourselves to walk into that, walk through what it could become as it evolves, not only are we able to become more comfortable, connect to that fire, that passion that many of us pray for, come to a space where we understand that, understand what our vision is, understand what our purpose and calling is. In order for us to come to that space, we have to be willing to go through all of the, let me see, I would say all of the corridors of the narratives that we've created that actually feed pulling back, feed
Right.
hunkering down, feed putting it off. We have to be willing to go through all of that and understand that those are just narratives. They're not real. They're not the truth, because if they were, then we just lay in them and be happy.
Right.
If it was the truth, we would be able to live with it. The fact that we can't is God's way of letting us know that, I'm not going to let you diminish me to being something that's as small as the narrative that you've been playing all this time, And so I love that you brought that up, because I think that that's something that all of us feel, and it's something that I think when we put it in a forum like this, I think a trick of the enemy is convincing us that the things that we fear the most are unique to us. It's
Mm.
not. It is a human condition. It is a human condition, and it's so important to be in forums like this where we talk about this, so that we understand that some of the people that we admire, some of the people that we say, man, I wish, or they got it going on, or whatever. Listen, at the end of the day, we're all still human. We all
Right.
still step into spaces where I don't care how dope we know we are. We was feeling that way until Jesse walked up. You like, damn, Jesse done made me rethink things.
Right.
That's human. But at the end of the day, Jesse's in his lane. And you can't
Right.
get in Jesse's lane, and Jesse can't get in yours, because you occupying that space. You filling up every piece of ground that you walking on. And can't nobody walk it like you. So I think that just having the courage to do that is how we start to build those planks on our bridge for grace to get us to the best side of what we want to experience in our lives.
I'm with that. Well, we are almost at time already. Dang, that hour be flying.
Flying, flying,
Flying.
flying, flying by.
But
So
go
no,
ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna start rapping. So if you have something, go ahead.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
exactly what I was gonna say. I was gonna say any final thoughts for you, because I know how you do. I ain't going there with
um,
you today.
just as far as final thoughts for me, it does come back to that disturbance disruption mentality of the process. Hey, thanks, Casual. Appreciate it. Um, to be able to disrupt and disturb all the negative that our mind can sometimes attach to, be able to
Mhm.
break that connection and just truly not in a hallucinate type of way to disconnect from reality, but it truly connect with like the positive and the things in your life that you have to be grateful and appreciative about.
Yeah.
um Even in like some of not even my worst mistakes, even in some of my greatest successes, the reason why I was able to obtain and sustain success was because I was willing to say, hey, look, I'm here for a reason, and I'm just going to seize this opportunity with everything that I have. And at the end of the day, this is the kicker. At the end of the day, is if everything I have in this moment is not enough, everything I did to try to be successful in the moment made me stronger.
There you go.
And so for me, when I think about this bridge called grace, because I've definitely come a lot further than where I started in this offering of myself grace, because I now can utilize that grace that I offer myself when people try to trigger uh, self contempt within me. I'm like, yeah, no, I already moved on from that. Sorry, you haven't. Hopefully, you
Right.
can get past it. Hopefully, if not, I understand. Not everybody can get past things, and that's just the nature of life. But I'm past it, so I don't have
Right.
any intent on going back.
Right.
Um, but I think that's what more my final thought would lay, would just be in that space of appreciating the development. Grace is really a cousin or a partner to development. When you're operating in a space of grace, when you're building that bridge to grace, or building that bridge called grace, um, you're in a space of development. And we were not designed to be stagnant in this life. We were designed to evolve, to grow, to change, to gain knowledge and then transform that knowledge into wisdom. That's what we were designed to do. So because that's what we were designed to do, it is imperative that grace becomes a part of that journey. If not, you're offering unnecessary drag to a journey that you were designed to take. So that would be my closing thought.
Yeah, I like that. Unnecessary drag to a journey you're designed to take. I like that. I like that a lot. I think that my final thought for this would be in that bridge called grace. As we build those bridges, I would say just to consider doing one thing a day that you're proud of. One thing. And that sounds like something small, but I mean, let's face it, we all have our routines. Many of us are on autopilot in our life because we do the same thing every day. You know, you got your job you do, if you run your kids, if you got date with the significant other, if you got your social media time, whatever. We tend to do pretty much the same thing every day. And if we allow ourselves to be stuck in that bubble, then that makes it that much harder to see that reoccurring thought as an opportunity. And so
Hmm.
for 30 days, choose one thing that you can do every day that makes you proud of you. And make that one thing that you do something that's outside of the routine that you normally do. Make it something that would be inconvenient. Make it something that would intentionally disrupt the pattern. They say that you can create a new habit in 14 days. Well, then that means that you should be able to create it and solidify it in 30. That's what that would mean. So, just I would recommend starting by just disrupting what you normally do and putting something in there that you can do that makes you proud. That's not necessarily easy to do, but it could be that opportunity that you've been looking for. So taking the time to seize that. So that's about it. But before we go, we can't leave without talking about the coach's tools for today. And I'm going to go right into tool number one, and that is live in realistic expectations. Man, oh man, I have to say this to myself all the
Nom yo ye Rick.
freaking cute. Right. Sit with my pillow. Ooh, you know the whole thing. Gotta kiss. Listen, it's so important. You know, lifetime. It's a journey. There is time. And I think that one of the things that trips us up is that, especially us American folk, we're so focused on these stringent, just strict timelines for everything. And there are some areas of our life where we just can't get around that. But then there are areas within our life that we can create where that does not exist. And if we're talking about season opportunities for different things that come up in our mind, how about just going with the flow? The areas of life that you have to adhere to strict timelines, like for work, kids' schedules, whatever, if you have certain things you got to do for your health, those things you can't help. But some of the other things that you want to try to interject in that wheel so that you can break it and create a new realm of habits, it's going to require you just going with the flow and allowing things to evolve. So, yeah, try to get around the unrealistic expectations by just going with the flow. Coach's tip number two, grace requires, I'm sorry, what is that? Grace requires behind the scenes work. Yes, it does. And isn't that the truth? You know what? Just in podcasting or even with this show, Billy and I these are not topics where we just, blue, just sometimes we will just come up with it like that. Because Billy and I, because we're coaches and we do what we do, we talk a lot for a living. That's just like what we do. So a lot of things come up through the course of conversation, but there are those conversations that are happening behind the scenes. There are those conversations that are a part of life, and we're taking those tidbits and deciding where to use them. The point of the matter is that not everything is going to just be zapped right at the forefront. It might require you taking some of what you've gotten and even some hours that you commit to throughout the week to really put into that thing and to bring that thing into fruition. So don't be afraid of having to put in that extra time to seize that opportunity and work through it and see what it could become. And finally, create a climate necessary for grace. This is so important as a mindset coach. I mean, the climate of your mind is something that you can choose to be intentional about. And I don't think a lot of people know that. I think that
Mm.
we're so used to allowing our mind to lead us that we don't understand that we could quiet and actually lead our mind. We can
Yep.
choose. There are some thoughts that come in that are random, but the intentional part of the climate of your mind is whatever comes in there, you get to decide what you keep, what replays, what stays, and what you want to erase. You can absolutely do that. But it's like anything else, it is a practice. And in order to begin the practice, actually knowing that this is a thing that you can do, this is a thing that you can do, and the intentionality with practicing what you want the climate of your mind to be like and taking the lead on that as opposed to allowing your mind to lead you is going to be something that's going to help you to create that thing for you. So that is it. But before we go, know that it ain't over this week. It ain't never over. You know why? Because the Wednesday word is tomorrow, y'all. Listen, if you haven't been to the First Row YouTube channel, what have you been doing with your life? I'm so ashamed of you because you have not been getting your life together. There are over 200 videos there with so much amazing content, and this boy don't stop because he's putting them up every week. The Wednesday word tomorrow, you have got to check that out. That is going to be at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, because he wants me to stay up late to see him, and so I do because it's good like that. Dope like that. He want me to make sure I got some good content to go to sleep on. But then it's still not done. The Grind Defined is every Friday, fresh episodes. You know what? I owe y'all one. I wasn't on last week because of the whole Ian situation, but that's okay. We back this week. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guess what? You can get the Grind Defined at thegrinddefined.com or anywhere that you can listen to a podcast. If you got Apple, Spotify, just search thegrinddefined.com, or you can link all of those platforms from the Grind Defined website. Also, fire your job, hire your passion. Yeah, that's what we've been talking about today. It is so far beyond time for you to decide that you want to take the reins on who you were created to be. And if you want to jumpstart on that, you're definitely going to want to go to firstrow.com. If you haven't gotten the book yet, again, tisk tisk, shame on you. You can download the first chapter. It's complimentary. And I guarantee you that after you read it, you're going to want to get the book and you're going to want to get this meaty, juicy journal. You guys, you're going to need to be a part of the discussion with that. So I definitely hope you pick up the book. As always, join us next Tuesday. No, I'm lying. Next Tuesday is the
I
11th.
know what day it is. I got the calendar.
You got your figure. So, okay, we'll be off next Tuesday because I will not be in town, but we'll be back the following Tuesday with more of the show. Listen, drop any comments or anything that you have in the show. If you're catching the replay, let us know where you're listening from and make sure share. In the meantime, in between time, go into your week knowing that it's already won and done. We're going to show up and build that bridge to get to the other side. You know why? Because we dope like that. Until next time, TM and BW out. Peace.
Peace.